It is Tuesday. Broadcasting live from 234 King Street East in fabulous downtown Toronto. Our glassed-in studios in the Pacific Junction Hotel. And talk about a lot of stuff. Lately, with the, I don't want to say lack of sports, but I would say that this is not your busiest time of year. In a couple of weeks, it will be. So there's a lot of different kind of topics I think that you can tackle, including those that will not be participating in that first couple of weeks of their professional league. Jeff Manishin, lawyer to the stars, is going to join us this morning in the discussion of Ezekiel Elliott. And, looking at his case, there's some strangeness around it. And it's more about legal matters, but when you think about how some of this has come across with the suspension, and again, when you talk legalities, you're talking about, precedents. So if you have had a precedent of other actions that are similar to that, is it comparable when you're dealing with a client like Ezekiel Elliott who's not going to play for it's 6 weeks, correct? That's what they're saying.
6 games.
Six games. So we'll talk to him, and he's got certainly a take on that. We'll also look at a bunch of things here this morning, including a little. We talk about Ric Flair and his currently his battle with.
Woo!
We need a status update on that?
No update.
No,
just excited.
Just a
to
great
do that,
woo.
That's all. Yeah.
Oh, there's a great 2 minutes of his what would you call them? Not press conferences.
Just promos.
Cutting
promos.
Promos.
Yep.
And they're hysterical. So we'll look at that. Look, if it's good, find some video. That's what we like to do on the show. I found some really strange stuff too. One, Steve Ovett was, I guess, a miler. We'll take a look at an English guy and a world champion, and his arrogance in London in 1980. You'll see what he does as he believes he's going to win the race. Until an Irish person had different thoughts about the whole fucking matter. And he took things into his own hands. You won't believe the ending, Dave. I've not seen it. Like Eamon Coughlin was the miler that I knew and was the world champion. I used to go down and watch him for those in the GTA. You remember the Toronto Maple Leaf indoor games? That was fantastic stuff. You saw world champion pole vaulters. I loved indoor track. Eamon Coughlin was one of the stars at that time. But I'm not remembering. I believe his name is John Tracy. So we'll take a look at that as well. I guess the one thing, if you did take a look at it, I don't know, I guess it's big for some people.
What's that?
The magic of the eclipse, the solar eclipse.
No, it isn't. You know who told me that she liked it? She was just talking about Jessica.
Jess
said, yeah, it was pretty cool. My favorite part is...
Well, I also noticed that Jess has missed a lot of days.
That's true. My favorite part is Donald Trump looking at the eclipse, taking off his sunglasses and looking at the eclipse. And then the memes that came out saying, I wish somebody would look at me the way Donald Trump looks at eclipses.
Yeah, there was stuff all over the place. So courtesy of... Now, this is global television, so global news.
Okay.
Because it was a little overcast, a little sloppy here in Toronto yesterday. Not cloudy. But they did have some challenges. But when the eclipse actually shows itself, the people, here's the reaction, courtesy of Global.
That scream is because we are seeing it right now. That is remarkable.
Oh my.
It is different in different parts of the country, but here in Beatrice, we are able to view the sun without any glasses on because we are in totality. We are fully in the moon's shadow here in Beatrice, Nebraska. It is incredible.
Yeah.
There is that sliver around it.
Where's the sun?
One day I was out there and the sun came out. Then the next day, there's a big black dot in front of it. You can hardly see the sun.
Hey, Ma, it's 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, Ma. Normally when it's dark, we're in bed together. One time I put a whole cob of corn up my ass. Is Elvis still alive, Mom? Or is he standing in front of the sun? Woo!
Oh, man.
Oh, wow. There's your...
As soon as you say Nebraska, that's the real story right there.
Yeah, that was a real story. Now, if you're in Chicago, you'd think maybe a little more sophisticated, and the weatherman starts crying.
This is unreal.
No cries for what? WGN in Chicago. Here's a proud moment for Chicago. He's crying. He's crying.
Look at that. Look at that. Oh, my word. Wow.
Crying.
This is amazing. What do you think of this, guys?
Here, buddy.
Wow.
You did it. Congratulations. Where are you going to be in 7 years?
I don't know. I think we're going to be back here again.
All right, so am I.
This
We'll
is
see you back here.
Take it easy.
This is life-changing.
Well, just wait like 10 hours and you can see more darkness again.
Come on, Tom.
Just not
Settle
the,
down,
the
Tom.
ring. I mean, I think for those of you who took science in school, and I know I did and I was terrible at it. I mean, just terrible. But I understand that apparently as the solar system moves around, these planets and objects sometimes align and they obscure the view, I suppose, of the sun and everything.
Louis Malone, Niagara Falls 2024. It's supposed to be some of the best pictures in North America. So we'll do a remote in 2024 in Niagara Falls.
Oh, yeah, that's happening.
And we'll be enjoying it just as much as some of these people in Nebraska and Chicago.
See, Coach Frank just tweeted it. There's a whole bunch of woos coming from Ric Flair for Nebraska. Hashtag Nebraska. Take it easy. Oh, wow. Well, there you have it. There's the magic of the eclipse. Was that the biggest thing yesterday? It depends on, my God, the issues that come up on a daily basis. And I tweeted out something over the weekend and said, we watch these documentaries, and CNN has done a series like on the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And
I've seen a couple of them, yeah.
And they're fantastic.
They're awesome. Usually Sunday nights.
Oh,
Yep.
Trust me, it is, worth recording these shows because they're great. And you sit there and you watch the latter part of the 60s and the 70s, and you look at the turmoil, and you look at the social turmoil, and some of the issues that they dealt with, including the political ones. And you always looked at it and thought, wow, I wonder what it was like to live in that kind of atmosphere when socially there was injustice and political unrest and wars. And well, I think we're starting to get that feel. I don't know about you, Dave, but literally on a daily basis, you can find where people are either protesting, they have a problem with their own government, their president, their state, their province, their prime minister. I mean, whether there's a social inequality or an injustice that people want to point out, and it just now is 24/7, and sports is now no longer exempt from that. Not that you don't see it, and of course with Colin Kaepernick, the kneeling during the anthem became noteworthy, but then it became almost passé. But last night, so this is a preseason game.
Yeah,
The
Cleveland and the Giants.
Yeah, Cleveland and the Giants. What was it, like 12 guys?
Yeah. It was probably one of the most I've seen in quite some time.
This was a little different. Now, I want you to watch this, those of you who are watching on rawmikerichards.com or those that are watching the dedicated YouTube channel. By the way, if you're doing that, make sure you subscribe. It's the easiest way on a daily basis to get the show. They very often talk about how they're not disrespecting the flag. They're not disrespecting people. There's no disrespect intended for the military. Does that give them the pass? Because by kneeling during the anthem, quite honestly, you're doing all those things. But are they within their own rights and, the amendments in the states? Are they, with freedom of speech? Is this something that you will applaud, and they do it in bigger numbers. And courtesy of ESPN and the National Football League, here's what it sounded like after the game.
Social injustices that are going on in the world right now. So we just decided to, take a knee and, pray for the people who've been affected. Just pray for the world in general. People think that when you reach a certain level of stature or status in life that, you're unaffected by everything that goes on in the world. And, we just wanted to, show everybody that, it starts with us who have that platform to, be able to, make statements without actually saying anything. And, we just band together because, we got to unite in some way. It's too much hate in the world. And, we just wanted to, come together as men. We're all high-quality men who are taught, stand up for what you believe in.
I wanted to take the opportunity with my teammates during the anthem, to pray for our country, and also to draw attention to the fact that we have work to do, and that's why I did what I did.
I feel like we can be a voice for a lot of people, and we did it out of respect. No disrespect to anyone. We just felt that it was the right time and it was the need to do it.
So once again, they come across a little bit differently, at least in my mind, for what they're saying. Now, again, is the line being crossed because it's the anthem? Does it make it immediately disrespectful? Or do they have a point? And did they do it in a manner which lends to their argument of why they're doing it in the first place, which is the social injustice, which is the pain, and as the one player said, the hate. And in some ways, in doing it like this, if this was a one-off, I kind of have a different feeling about this one than I do Colin Kaepernick. And maybe it's because the way it was verbalized by the players, and you know what, we talked yesterday about the timing. We talked about diversity of strength with the CFL. But this timing is pointing out what they believe to be an issue within their own country. The problem they have, and the issue, Dave, I guess they're trying to raise, is they believe that there is social injustice, and there's also a lot of hate, and maybe this was a way to do it. So just for me personally, somehow it came across a lot differently, and I understand what they were talking about, and I have a different feeling about that than I did with Colin Kaepernick. Now, that might be unfair. It's just the way I feel about it.
You know what? I'm just I'm just not a fan in general of kneeling during any national anthem, no matter whose it is. And if they want to take 2 minutes, which is ridiculous to even say, 2 minutes to pray, because if you truly want to pray, you're going to need a lot more than 2 minutes. If you really want to do that, after your game, instead of heading out to the local nightclub, why don't you go rent a church or something and spend a couple hours in there, and you can pray all you want. And I understand the why you want to do that. And he's right. There is a lot of hate in the world, but I think you're using something that is see, anytime you remotely interfere with something to do with a national anthem in the military sense, because I look at that as a respect to the military. Anytime you decide to do it at that stage, I have a problem with that. I understand standing up for things, but there's a time and a place, and I don't think the 1 minute 55-second song to kneel and do your protest there is the right place or time to actually do it.
You're watching rawmike.richards.com, obviously on our website, and of course on the dedicated YouTube channel, or downloading on iTunes and Google Play, and we hope to have TuneIn sort of in line with what we want to do, which is live streaming. We sort of promised our fans that we would do that, and we still really need to get the word out on what we're doing, because we're so new that we realize it's still in its infancy of where we're at. I would also say that we're kind of pleased, and we have in the first week, just after Labor Day, you're going to see the studio looking even more different than it is right now. And some people noticed yesterday, courtesy of our brand new sponsors, Dasmo. We've got 1080p cameras. The lighting's a little bit different, but you're going to see a bunch of sponsors and a bunch of logos. We're going to make this thing look like NASCAR by the time we get to the first day after Labor Day. And we're real pleased with that. So we're glad that you have joined us early because, quite honestly, after 4 months, it does kind of feel early. But we're glad we did it. We're glad that we sort of, before it gets real busy, because let's be honest, hockey talk, as Dave is starting to appear a little bit. You obviously, we're already addressing NFL issues. In the CFL, it's kind of that line in the sand on, what you want to do as a team, whether you got some run left in you. And I'll be honest, there's a couple of teams in the East that it's over already. Like it's just sad this year that has happened, but there's a little bit of NBA talk. You found something weird too, with LeVar Ball just before we went on the air, and he showed it to me. And I thought, what the hell is that you're showing me? And it actually is his stats. Now, was it football?
Yeah, it was football. So Darren Rovell tweeted this out. This date. In 1994, the New York Jets waived rookie undrafted free agent LeVar Ball. He was out of Cal State Los Angeles. Signed a contract with the Jets in the offseason and was cut by the Jets during training camp. He was apparently a tight end. And they actually, I don't know if are we getting a picture of that?
Yeah, well, we got a picture of LeVar there, yeah.
Yeah, so he was actually invited to camp, and things just didn't work out for him New York Jet-wise.
I'm amazed he's not comparing himself to Jerry Rice or some of the greatest players of all time, that he could beat them somehow. I did not see that coming today, Dave. I got to be honest.
No, me neither.
We also, when we talk about the busyness of the fall, we were talking about baseball. And did you see that Yu Darvish is on the DL?
Not surprising.
Already.
Yeah. He's had some issues in the last year with the Texas Rangers. So now with the Dodgers, they're kind of inheriting those problems. But you know what? We're sitting here at the end of August, just like Clayton Kershaw, who's hopefully going to be strong for.
I think he is. I think he's going to be ready.
Yeah, you want those guys ready for October, not necessarily now, but some concerns, right? When you look at that, because right now, for my money, the Dodgers are the team to beat in Major League Baseball, and I'd be surprised if they're not holding up a trophy in late October, early November.
Granderson hit a grand slam home run yesterday. The Dodgers beat Pittsburgh 6-5. But in that game...
Nice pickup, too, eh? Granderson?
Yeah.
They just picked him up like 3 days ago.
Oh, the Grandy man can, Dave.
He certainly can.
I don't know why I did that. What the hell? What is going on? It's only Tuesday. Maybe it's beer day because the beer runs at all the pubs and the bars around here.
Exactly. You could see like 5 trucks in front of us.
It's an awesome smell. It's a great smell. Puig, who we normally see with a bat and otherwise usually flipping off fans or getting yelled at by his manager, he is a specimen, but he also plays field as well. Was it important last night? Well, important enough that we're going to show this clip courtesy and property of Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Advanced Media.
Now he goes hard the other way. Over is Puig. Oh, Yasiel Puig makes a fabulous grab, and he might be hurt. Hard into the scoreboard.
Oh, that is committing yourself to making the play and dealing with whatever happens.
Yeah, it was a great catch, by the way. That was at PNC last night. If you've been to a ballpark that you remember, most people, when they go, Dave, they can't stop talking about PNC. Where it's located in Pittsburgh, too, just across, where the river sort of circles around. It's a beautiful, beautiful ballpark.
And you know what? In your car, door-to-door Toronto to the park is about 5 hours and 30 minutes. So it's not
it's
that
doable.
Far.
I know
it's not that far.
A lot of guys, when they talk about, what cities where you do the all sports all time, Pittsburgh's a good one to hit.
Yes, it is.
Because 5.5 hours isn't an unbearable drive. It's long enough, but you can hit literally, depending on when you go, almost every sport.
That's exactly it, because Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, you want to go in September-ish, near the end of it, and hopefully with the Pirates, they're obviously not going to be there, but if they kind of dive into the postseason, October is a great month to go to Pittsburgh. A lot of good eats in that area too. There's a nice little market area that some of the best burgers and hot dogs, that kind of like the bar food.
Yeah, the brothers. What's it called? Like it's like the Briganti brothers or something. Now I can't remember what it is, but it's
and
a
it has
good
that
place.
mural of
of
all the players.
The sandwiches there are ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why I can't think of it. We were there for the entry draft the one year. There's a lot of great stuff down there. Now I'm just thinking about another story that I can't tell in that area. It was great. But not that story that I'm not telling. By the way, speaking of great, you wonder about sportsmanship. We showed the Little League stuff where that kid jumped over the fence, I guess is what you would call it, to make that amazing home run disappear. Here's a game between Venezuela and the Dominican Republic, and you have to know, and not surprisingly, just how important that sport is to both of those places. I mean, just look at the number of each of those countries and the professional baseball players from there. And we know here in Toronto, of course, with the Dominicans, how close they are. But sometimes with these national cameras for this Little League World Series, you got announcers, you got guys doing in-between inning stuff. Like it's just so huge that you wonder about the pressure on what are really small children. Yeah, they're exceptional athletes for their age, but they're still children. And sometimes you see stuff that kind of breaks your heart a little bit. But this will make you feel pretty good about the team that actually loses and how Venezuela reacts to a Dominican Republic team that they just crushed. This courtesy of our friends at ESPN.
To right field and deep and over the head of Benny Trionfel. One run is in. Here comes another. Venezuela wins. Amazing.
And watch the pitcher. He gave it up.
And Omar Romero,
face down, crying,
can celebrate with his teammates a 3-2 victory. After all that waiting around, it was over just like that.
Then watch.
Amazing.
So celebrations.
All that waiting for a moment like that.
Handshaking.
And Edward has absolutely nothing now. Nothing to be ashamed of. The way he played.
Watch Venezuela.
And the players and coaches of Venezuela know it. Everybody loves this kid.
Yeah, it was the Venezuela coaches that went out to see him first.
Then the other players hugging the Dominican pitcher who coughed up the home run.
Venezuelan players going out to help him out at the same time. This little kid has kind of stolen the hearts of whoever watched him this entire time. Win or lose, that doesn't make much difference, buddy.
No, it's great to see that. Once again, courtesy of ESPN. But you forget. There are these kids. You have to think of what their daily life was probably in the Dominican. Now they're sitting there and ESPN on national television. Baseball probably means that is your whole world. And for a lot of those from the Dominican Republic, Dave, it's not inconceivable that a bunch of those kids end up being in the show.
Exactly.
So
and the pressures that go with
the pressure,
right?
then that,
Yeah.
and doesn't, I mean, you're a dad. When you see that, the kid face down, that would be, boy, I'll tell you as a parent, that would be tough.
That would be really tough. Exactly. And nice spirit of the game there, just kind of going over to him. And, you remember that for the rest of your life too. Like, I know you and I joke about, remember, in the teenage years, this happened and this happened. And, oh, what about if this happened instead of this? It's obviously the guy would have wanted to strike out the batter instead of give up the game-winning hit, but you'll remember that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, maybe like about 10 years later when they're in the show and the pitcher's up on the mound and they're like, whoa, that was a high fastball inside. What was that all about? Well, Dave,
you take down the numbers of the ones you missed.
When he was 9 years old, he got lit up by Omar Vescaro. But that was pretty awesome. You're watching Raw Mike Richards on YouTube or, of course, on rawmike.richards.com. Hopefully you've subscribed to both. Coming up in a couple of minutes here, we're going to have Jeff Manishin. It's Ross. No, I had it written down.
Ross and McBride. Out of Hamilton.
And he is our lawyer to the stars, as he's, his resume is unbelievable, but he wants to join us today because we're going to talk a little bit about Ezekiel Elliott. And just what his case could be, Dave, I think is the way to look at that. Also, for those that are going to join us, some of the crazy stuff that we've seen from the world of sports. And I don't know if I've ever seen a guy showboating as much as this happens in a track and field. So is it the 1500, Russell, does it say? I think it's the 1500. And in 1980, Steve Ovett, who looks like he's going to win in Crystal Palace, actually in London. But an Irishman named John Tracy has other thoughts, and what he did before he crosses the finish line, it just looks so bad. And I believe the title of this piece, it's originally from the BBC, and we'll figure out what's the name of the YouTube. What are they saying it is? They don't see
the channel or the
channel. Oh, that's
not good.
Oh, come on. It's right in front of you.
Great fucking help. That's wow. That's awesome. But the name of the piece is what it's called.
Arrogance personified.
Arrogance personified. That's not very nice. Okay. Well,
that'd be a good name of a tag team for wrestling. Arrogance personified.
Yeah. We'll get to actually that a little wrestling with want to make a call?
Yeah, let's make a call.
You need to install the plugin to make Skype calls. What?
Uh-oh.
Just call. Can you do that? Is it calling?
I don't know. Sounds like it's doing something.
It's doing something, as we are going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott, as we call Jeff Manishin, lawyer to the stars. It's making the Skype sound, which is great for the audience and tremendous television. As it spins in front of me, doing nothing. Here it comes.
Hello, Jeff Manishin.
Is lawyer to the stars? Is that what it says?
I do think of you guys as stars, so yes, I'd say so.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. How are you, Mike? How are you, David?
Fantastic. And, in this day and age, Jeff, it seems like, those of us who don't practice law, we take a look at things that happen in professional sport, and sometimes we scratch our head a little bit because we're unsure of just how much power a league has. And so when you look at Ezekiel Elliott and the 6-game suspension, from a legal standpoint, and if he or your client, I don't know if there's been something in terms of evidence that we've seen that allows the league to make the kind of judgment on his career that they did. So I'm wondering, who has the power here? Is it the league, or would it be the representation that Ezekiel Elliott has?
Well, let's start with the fact that it's not like the criminal trial process at all. We'll characterize it this way. The rules of the game are defined by the collective bargaining agreement. And I don't do labor and employment law, but I've read about it as it relates to this kind of stuff out of interest. And think of it as the NFLPA and the NFL sit down and they come up with a collective bargaining agreement that covers a whole host of things. Things like salary cap, obviously, and, whatever other features they build into it. But one of the features they built into it was an issue of discipline. In other words, how do they deal with conduct? And, Mike, the NFLPA, as we know, historically have never done a very good job of negotiating on behalf of the players. Don't they have the worst contract, the worst deal? They don't have guaranteed contracts. On this one, the system they agreed to gave essentially Goodell the power to determine discipline, and the first level of appeal was to Goodell or his designate.
Now, is this why
Crazy?
that you hear a lot of in the NHL, or so the NFLPA saying when it comes up to the next negotiations that they're walking for sure, and discipline and some of those issues you just mentioned is a big part of why they believe that they will walk?
Absolutely. So let's come back then to this with respect to the process, okay, to explain to you the collective bargaining process. So it is an agreed-upon method, and you'll see sometimes in other employment situations and other contractual deals, that the issues can be resolved through arbitration. You might, hear about that. So in other words, it gets it out of the court system. So here, discipline is meant to be, the collective bargaining, here's our mechanism. And here's my best understanding of the way this process went. He had this committee of a number of different people, and they did a whole investigation that went on for the course of a year. You kind of wonder, it's domestic assault allegations in the context of, boyfriend, girlfriend. I don't know where it needs a year. Presumably, Elliott and his side had a chance to be able to provide some information, but it's not like there's any hearing or anything. you have these investigators, and then they release this report that's like 160 pages in length. And on the strength of it, discipline is imposed of 6 games. You know, where you really wonder about this is who had the opportunity to challenge or test the allegations? Like, there was no hearing. Think of it. Investigators talk to this group, look at pictures, look at police reports, and, you know, presumably get input from him and his side. And then they say, well, this is what happened, or this is our conclusion, this is where discipline is warranted. We have medical evidence of bruising, so it tends to confirm her story. Okay? We know since Ray Rice, the league is taking a much more careful and cautious view of ensuring that they're extra strict on issues of domestic violence. So what happens? 6 games. It's a pretty healthy bang.
Yeah, it sure is. Now let's break down what you kind of just talked about there. My problem is, and you know, because I don't know what has happened, so I can't sit there and say, oh, he did or he didn't. But either way, whatever these allegations are, they haven't been proven in court. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been proven guilty or not guilty in court, but yet the NFL can deem taking away 6 games of his season based on their findings. Shouldn't there be some sort of marriage between the courts in the United States and the NFL before the NFL could actually make a judgment like this?
Well, to take that in 2 ways, Dave, if you had a conviction, certainly, they could say, look, we have the conduct clearly established beyond a reasonable doubt, and a criminal conviction is a character issue that reflects so badly on the league, we're going to sanction you for the criminal conduct. But if you back up a step and say, we have an allegation, and in fact here, these were investigated by the police who determined there wasn't enough to be able to even proceed with a charge. Mm-hmm. So to stay with your point, well, if there isn't enough for a charge, how on earth can you make a finding of misconduct that merits punishment? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, at least at this first level, it would seem, they have, and it presumably is covered by the collective bargaining agreement. So I get you back into that forum, is presumably they can do their investigation and do a report to the commissioner who has the authority to impose a punishment, and then there's a potential appeal to his designate. It's all staying away from the courts, an appeal to his designate. And that seems to be the stage that we're at. Now, from what I've been reading and hearing, there were some features that seem to have come to the attention of Elliott's side that might cause some real question on the credibility of the complainant. And so now, just for the moment, let's park that for a sec. In my world, because I do criminal defense work, I've done lots of domestic assault cases for years. And certainly there are a number of them where it's resolved by way of a plea, where there's no issue about the conduct. But there are others where the allegations are, I'd say, false. Mm-hmm. They can come from emotion, they can come from revenge, they can come from matrimonial discord. There's a host of different reasons. And you can never get into the realm of saying, because there's an allegation plus there's bruises equal it happened.
Well, can you fall into a category where people then point the finger and call it, I guess, witness shaming? Would that be a phrase that comes up from time to time?
Well, if you wanted to get into the realm, Mike, of sort of, we'll call it political correctness. You know, I call it challenging the credibility of the complainant. I mean, there was a case recently in Toronto involving some Toronto police officers.
Right.
And you'll recall that there was an issue, allegations of sexual misconduct, sexual assault in the context of a function they were being with another, police officer. And the judge, who's an excellent judge named Anne Malloy, she said, the phrase we hear, "we believe survivors," has no place in the criminal justice system. And you remember in the John Ghomeshi case, remember the people protesting outside the courthouse, "We believe survivors"? Why would you conclude they're a survivor on the mere fact they've made an allegation? Mm-hmm. That's working everything in reverse. That's presuming the matter in issue. You got to start by saying we have an allegation. Let's keep an open mind. I'd like to think, and maybe this isn't in the collective bargaining agreement, an allegation of misconduct is made against an NFL player, and he doesn't get the benefit of the presumption of innocence. And in fact, if it's an allegation of domestic violence, okay, it's not a bar fight, okay? Because it's domestic violence, we're going to believe the survivor, we're going to believe the complainant, and anything that might challenge the complainant's credibility is witness shaming. I mean, challenges to the credibility in the Ghomeshi case led to the acquittal because there were real questions about the reliability of what they said. Mm-hmm. And again, to bring it back to my world, the worst thing you could do is you've got an allegation of physical, domestic abuse, and we start with the basis it happened. Well, how do you get there? So now let's bring it back to Elliott. Well, if the standard is less than proof beyond a reasonable doubt, okay, let's say that the commissioner has to be satisfied it happened, and he's got his investigators, but he's satisfied it happened. Where's the place for a challenge to the story? Is there any room for that? And we may well see it and hear about it at the appeal level. But, I don't know that it'll be a matter at this appeal level of, for example, Elliott's lawyers being able to cross-examine her. I don't know that that'll happen. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was just going to ask you. What is the next step? Is the appeal the next step? And what do you think in reading your findings, what will eventually happen here?
Well, I think, Dave, let me take almost a practical kind of view. This guy, Harold Henderson. So this time around, by the way, unlike Tom Brady, Goodell, instead of appealing for sitting as the appellate tribunal, he's referred it out to this guy, Harold Henderson. And he's, got some experience doing the sorts of things. It wouldn't shock me if he knocks the suspension down, 6 games down to 4 games or something like that. Throws something over to Elliott's side. Certainly, if we stay with that for a sec, if Elliott's side says, look, here are real issues to challenge the strength of the allegations, does that mean, okay, maybe the allegations aren't true, so we'll reduce the penalty? You might have thought maybe the allegations aren't true, and so we'll set it aside. I'm not going to think I don't think that's going to happen. And then the issue of how does it ever get to the courts? You remember with Brady, it worked its way all the way up through the various appellate courts?
Yep.
It didn't get there on a pure review of the decision. In other words, was the suspension right or wrong? The review was based on process, that it was that essentially it was a fundamentally unfair hearing process, and that's what the appellate courts had to consider. Did he effectively have a hearing that complied with the basic principles of fairness that are needed for an arbitration, not the penalty? And ultimately, you'll recall that the suspension ultimately was upheld. That was I read a couple of those decisions, and the focus there was it fair process? And, because you see, the courts say, look, if you guys have your collective bargaining agreement, you have your whole method and your appeal, and we aren't getting involved. You guys have contracted into your method to resolve these issues. Don't look at us. So now the appeal, I don't know, Dave. I don't think that the appeal involves a hearing where she testifies and she's cross-examined. I think it's going to be on let's characterize it as the written record.
So now this is just from a non I guess a lawyer type like myself.
I use that phrase sometimes. I'm going to speak to you not as a lawyer but as a human being.
Exactly. No, just
the rules are sometimes mutually exclusive.
Yeah. So
a prof that I met years ago at University from Arkansas, he said, "There's 2 kinds of law, Jeffrey. There's the book law." And there's the folk law.
So, in your opinion, and this is just from a football fan's point of view, based on the NFL's collective bargaining agreement and what they have in place for this sort of thing, do you find it odd that the NFL would set up the rule of what Tom Brady did, which essentially was adding air to a football based on, okay, if you're going to do that, we're going to give you 4 games. But if you're going to beat a spouse or a person, we're going to add 2 more games to that. So the differences between adding air to a football
or taking air out,
or taking air out compared to an allegation of abuse, which clearly the NFL has said that this has happened, is a difference of 2 games. Does that remotely make any sense in the big scheme of things?
Well, Dave, here's how I could get there. Okay, is number one, the conduct in relation to the spouse will characterize it as behavior that reflects on the individual's character and in turn on the league. Okay, that it reflects badly on the individual and on the general reputation. Remember, we got to protect the shield, right? Is the phrase.
Sure. Yes.
On the other hand, if you're deflating a football that's used in play that could potentially interfere with the outcome of the game, and that's contrary to rules, so essentially now we're into the integrity of the game itself. Some might say that's more serious because that goes to the fans are looking for a true and fair and proper and valid outcome of the competition, and if you're distorting it, one could make a case to say that in certain respects is more serious. Okay, but if we return back for a second in terms of rules and so forth, I mean, we've seen it in baseball too, right? Didn't we have, was it Jose Reyes was suspended for a period of time, and I don't think his wife wanted to proceed. I think they just diverted the case.
Correct, yes.
And there was another guy, I think a pitcher, who who was it that fired shots in his garage, and no charges or anything, and he got suspended? I mean, in other sports, in baseball, let's go back to this one. Is it really right to suspend guys when a case has not even resulted in a criminal charge?
Yeah,
Okay.
see, that's what I think too.
That's the part that I really have some trouble with, because if we're gonna suspend on an allegation, or if we say, okay, it's an allegation where in a hearing where you don't have a chance to confront your accuser, you can still get suspended.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Right? That's the part that bothers me.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, did we ever decide on what your theme song should be? What band was singing? I can't remember.
I left it to you guys. I mean, I love soul music.
Soul music.
Okay.
All right. Well,
yeah.
This show is just reeks of soul.
There's so much soul. I mean, I've seen James Brown live and in concert a number of times. Got his autograph. Got to shake his hand. Okay, so. Yeah. But I don't know if he talks about law. But hey, that's the theme. There's our musical beat.
Well, Steve Phillips had a James Brown theme song, so it can be done.
I was jealous. I was jealous.
Well, you should, you have nothing to be jealous about. I will just say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you really don't. You really don't.
Because now, Mike, I know that you're on the show. Okay, we got a little more time. I promised you guys I'd let you guys get more than 3 words in, and I've done that.
Yeah, you've done. Yeah.
Wow, I'm overwhelmed.
Check the boxes.
Yeah, really
you're in.
There we go. Other questions? I mean, this is the kind of thing that's lots of fun. And what we've identified here, and by Dave, your question, you can see that people who aren't familiar with the justice system and don't work in it have some questions, and there's not really that great a mechanism or form for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I've done for many years, I've done public speaking, I do TV and radio, legal commentary regularly. People are fascinated by this stuff.
Well, it is.
And if you can demystify it, and you say, you wonder about it, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. But if I do, you say, okay, great, I understand it now. Now I can sort of proceed to read the stories and follow the case with a different perspective.
Does this mean by making an appearance like this that you have embraced yourself even further with Ross McBride? Is that what happens? Well,
Ross McBride is very happy for this, but what it is, Mike, it's a return to my roots. Okay, I used to do CBC TV and radio when I was a kid. I was an ACTRA member so long ago that, my union number was 6. No, that's an old joke. That's an old joke.
Yeah, that's good. You
but
go
the number
on
actually was, I had an ACTRA number. It was W474 back in the 60s.
Wow.
Before you guys, I got pants older than you guys. Back, right? I used to do TV and radio for this kind of stuff. It's now, it's fun.
Who were you?
It's interesting.
Who were you representing? Bruno Gerussi? I mean, what?
Oh no! I was a kid. I was on TV when I was a kid.
Oh, you were on as a kid.
I was TV and radio when I was a kid. I did CBC radio dramas.
You were an actor, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. I acted professionally from when I was 9. So now you get into this stuff, and you say, well, I guess to be a good lawyer, you got to be a good actor. No, there are a lot of lawyers that are bad actors.
I won't disagree with that.
But on the other hand, if you can do it, if you have a sense of performance and communication in your audience, as you guys know, it's what you're looking for, basically keeping your audience not only entertained but engaged.
Yeah.
That's the same thing for me.
Yeah, I see it. You know what? Next time you come on, we will have the James Brown theme song for you. This is what we're going to do.
And you know what I'll say to that?
What?
Ow! Ain't it funky now?
Boy, Ross McBride, there's the proud moment for them right there, Jeff. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, Ross McBride isn't funky, okay? Yeah. But for me, okay, this is a return to funk. I mean, if you listen to you watch TV ads and stuff, how often do you hear James Brown songs?
He's ripped off all
backing
the time.
Up advertising.
Yeah, absolutely.
That stuff is as vibrant and lively and impactful today as it was in the 50s, 60s.
I don't disagree. Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. Always appreciate it. Look forward to the next time.
Okay, that's great. Good chatting with you guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Jeff Manishin from Ross McBride, and also previously a huge actor on the CBC back in the 60s.
That is, yeah.
I think where every show was like, there's a lost kitten or Mr. Dressup. Wasn't Mr. Dressup CBC?
Yep, Mr. Dressup was. I was going to say Littlest Hobo, but Littlest Hobo wasn't CBC.
No, that was CTV, I believe.
Yeah, that was CTV, yeah.
Yeah, so once again, here it is. What I said, Briganti, the Primanti brothers.
Yes.
Yeah. That, including the magnificent, this is from Coach Frank, the magnificent Mario sandwich named after the greatest of all time, Mario Lemieux. And see, now we're saying Lemieux, which is weird. I never said Lemieux as a kid.
Greatest of all time.
It was always Lemieux.
Greatest of all time, okay.
So now there's more controversy. So returning to the airwaves is Jeff Manishin to... Oh, that was great stuff. Now, speaking of great stuff, And we have been showing you some crazy videos. So this, just because people get pissy on the internet, so we got to do this right. I'm saying, and because originally it was a property of the BBC. This is out of London in Crystal Palace. This was a race between, well, at the end, Steve Ovett and I believe John Tracy, a man from Ireland, although not a nobody. He was also a cross-country champion. So this is two champions. But Steve Ovett really felt that he was going to win this race. Now, what are we saying the thing says there? Can you not see that, Russell?
Some weird name. I can't read it from here.
Okay, so courtesy of a weirded named, get a load of probably one of the worst examples of showboating and the final result. Once again, courtesy of the BBC.
American looks as though he's going for home. Ovett still looks oh so relaxed. Tracy looks as though he's pushing a little bit. Ovett looks to see where the opposition is. Upright. Beautifully relaxed. 200 meters to go.
200 meters.
And one feels that there's only one man with a killer threat there. Ovett looks to see where Tracy is. But Chesney, and Ovett goes.
Hand to the crowd.
Tracy's going after him. And he's got a race on his hands, and Steve's got to run. And it's done him the world of good. He's got to go for the line. Well done, John Tracy. And well done, Steve. Oh, and he's got it. And Tracy may have stolen it. He might just have stolen it, in which case Steve has only got himself to blame. It was a marvellous run. He won't begrudge Tracy, I know that. He'll not begrudge him, but Tracy, the Mudlark, has sneaked it in 13:27.8.
There it is, right there. Wow. So was it the 5,000, I guess?
Wow, arm up in the air.
The Mudlark. Tracy the Mudlark. John Tracy's name was. Can you believe that? The guy's running, and again, you got to see this thing. Raises his arm like, hello, English people. I'm the greatest person. Even the announcers were like, oh, he's a stunning man. There can only be one outcome. Fucking English.
See, and the race wasn't remotely won at that time.
No, there's almost 100 meters to go.
I was going to say, how do you raise your hand?
Yeah.
You raise your hand if you're ahead by 100 meters at that time.
Ahead by 100.
Yes.
Not 1 meter.
No.
No.
I was going to say, if you're ahead by 100 meters, you can moonwalk across the line if you want to, because you're going to have all the time in the world. But that guy could have reached out and grabbed his shoulder.
The only thing would have been better, and this is just the way I think, as he's going by, just try to throw a punch or an elbow. Like, just try to get an extra thing in there. Now, I know you're disqualified, but, whatever. The Irish are angry, and I get that, but that was unbelievable.
You'll remember that forever.
Also, we mentioned earlier this morning, not sure about the condition of Ric Flair. I know a lot of people who love wrestling, and he is one of the greats. Still, and look, there's not a lot of them still alive, and people still sort of crossing their fingers that remains.
Well, I got an update from his daughter, Charlotte Flair. There's a picture on Instagram that she sent out just the other day. So it says, after an incredibly hard week, my dad is getting better. There is still a long road to go, and he's not out of the woods just yet. But I want to again thank everybody for their support on behalf of myself and my family. My dad has given his life to sports entertainment, to everybody competing tonight. That was SummerSlam on Sunday. Know that he'd love to be backstage watching you. Give it all you got with a little extra flair tonight for him. Woo!
There you go. Exactly. That, once again, if you're watching, you'll see that actually on Instagram on our screen. But if you're, that's an act. There's your show right there. Not Carlito eating a mango or a peach or whatever that was.
Apple, yeah.
Is apple? Is it apples?
Yeah.
That's when I don't know. Is the WWF considered by wrestling fans?
Now E.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Considered the better period than the WWE.
Yes. Yeah. Wrestling at its most entertaining form was 80s into 90s, and now I'm not saying it's terrible or anything like that, but it's a lot different. And there's not as much that and that was a lot of fun, because you got to remember there was that side of things. Now that's Ric Flair, NWA, and WCW at the time, which of course the WWE bought those tapes and libraries and they own them now. But the equivalent in the 80s was Hogan being the good side of him, where he'd come out and take your vitamins, say your prayers, and stuff like that. And he'd cut the same sort of promos in the positive way though. But man, the characters that were built in that era have never been the same and will never be the same.
Dave, something we didn't do yesterday, Russell, before we go. By the way, on Thursday, Victor Newman will come in, and he's been 3 for 4, I think, most of those weeks.
Yep.
So he's got to nail this one. I'm looking at some of the numbers, by the way. And again, if we're talking about some action in the CFL, the Bombers -1.5 at Montreal.
Love that number. I'm
taking that. I think Victor probably will. Saskatchewan Roughriders at the Edmonton Eskimos. It's under a touchdown, which I think at home, the Roughriders had a crazy game last week where everything worked right. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen in Edmonton, where, look, they've had to piece together a lot of injuries, but if it's under a touchdown, I think you better take that number now. The BC Lions are getting points going to Ottawa, +1.5, and that's because they were so bad last week. Lule came in after Jennings was ineffective. But they couldn't do anything last week. So I think there's a little bit of bias in that.
Yep.
So that's an interesting game. If you want to take that 1 to 6 points, you could be talking that in that game. And then the Argos at the Stampeders, it is -10 already, and for that you're only getting a 1.86. So
it's a lot of points,
that's
right?
A lot of points. But if you find that distracting, how about this guy in Japan?
Okay.
And this happened just passed on the weekend. I just couldn't believe it. So this is courtesy of a video surveillance thing. I know it made it to the news. So you know that you were way too distracted when a sinkhole appears in a major road. This isn't the side of the road. This is a urban center, and the road completely collapses, and you're on a moped. Maybe you shouldn't be on the phone. Watch the size of this sinkhole. Boom. It's huge. It's like a swimming pool. And here comes a guy on moped while on the phone. And they're laughing at it. I think those are like the security guys. How do you do that? That's a huge hole. But it's okay because he wasn't hurt. I wouldn't care.
He's going in it pretty good.
Even if it was decapitated, I'm probably still showing it. Now, there's your commercial right there for distracted driving.
No kidding. Live.
But he's on a moped with the phone. Now, I know a lot of people are bad with the phone. And people say, yeah, don't do it while you're driving. Raise your hand if you do use the phone while you're driving. Me? Yep. Russell doesn't put his hand up.
Whatever.
Oh,
Russell should put two hands up.
You got to have a car, I guess.
That's true, too.
That probably
I should tell you, I have gotten better now that I could do the Bluetooth hands-free through the car.
Oh,
kind of thing.
Completely.
So it is gotten a lot better.
I got a warning, and that's why I stopped.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did.
A couple of years ago, I was driving down Adelaide, and I'm sitting at a red light. And, you're at a red light in downtown Toronto. There's at least 10 cars ahead of you, 10 cars behind you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, while I'm texting, I'm startled because dude knocks on my window, and I look up, and it's a cop on a bike, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I sat there, and I tried to do the old, I just dropped off my wife from work. She's 8 months pregnant, which she was at the time with Nicole.
Good one. That's a good one. I like this story.
And I thought, I picked up the phone because I saw it was her number. It didn't fly with him, but I went to court. By the way, I recommend going to court to fight tickets. I am big on fighting tickets.
I'm with you there, too.
I'm almost perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm just saying, I went to court. Everything was okay. I got the reduced fine. Didn't get the demerits, which is key. Demerits kill you.
Yeah, insurance-wise, it's brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you know what? Ever since then, I've been a lot better. So,
when you won that case, did you give them the Ric Flair?
Yeah, I walked out of there, and I kind of went up to him, and I stuck out my hand, and he stuck out his hand, and I went, woo! And I pulled it back, and I left. He deserved it.
What? Woo!
Knocking out my window while I'm texting. Get out of here.
Giant watch.
In the garage.
Yep.
It's
I I would like to thank Jeff Manishin from Ross McBride, who joined us here today and explaining the strangeness just in, I guess, the handling of Ezekiel Elliott. So basically saying someone's guilty before they're proven guilty in a court of law, which I thought was interesting, and so did he. So we'll see where that takes us. We'll get to Victor Newman picks this week as well. And then we'll talk a little Conor McGregor, obviously, and Mayweather. I'm still liking it going the distance. A Mayweather decision, that's going to give you 3 times your money. We'll talk more about it tomorrow on RawMikeRichards.com.